All right, if you're an English student, I bet you've spent tons of time on grammar and literature, right? But have you ever stopped to think about what happens when language, well, when it breaks down? In this explainer, we're going to dive into a super practical study guide on clinical linguistics, the amazing field where language theory meets actual human health.
So, let's kick things off with a question. What in the world connects a grammar textbook to a hospital room? The answer is this fascinating field called clinical linguistics. And it's all about using the science of language to understand, diagnose, and ultimately help people with communication disorders.
Okay, here's our game plan for this study session. First, we'll lay the foundation of what clinical linguistics even is. Then we'll open up what I call the linguist's toolkit. After that, we'll shine a spotlight on specific disorders, unpack the huge difference between knowledge and performance, cover some key terms you gotta know for your exams, and finally, wrap it all up by looking at why any of this matters.
All right, let's jump right in. First things first, what is the bedrock of this whole field? What are we actually talking about?
So, the official definition says clinical linguistics is a branch of applied linguistics. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, applied is the key word there. This isn't just theory sitting in a dusty book. It's about applying all those rules of grammar, syntax, and sound production as real-world diagnostic tools to help real people in a clinical setting.
Now, it's super important to know that a clinical linguist isn't the same as a speech therapist. Think of the linguist as more of a language detective. Their job is first, formal analysis. That means creating a really precise map of a patient's language abilities. They also design the actual assessment tools, the tests used to figure out what's going on. And maybe most importantly, they help with differential diagnosis, which is all about telling the difference between a language disorder and just a language difference, like having an accent.
And to be a good language detective, you need a specialized toolkit. It's like trying to fix a car engine. You can't just use a hammer for everything. You need different tools for different parts. Language is exactly the same. So let's open up this toolkit and see what's inside.
Okay, the very first tools in our kit deal with the absolute building blocks of speech, the sounds themselves. Phonetics is all about the physical side of things, how your lips, your tongue, and your vocal cords all work together to make a sound. Then you've got phonology, which is the brain side of it, the rule book for how those sounds are organized and patterned in a language.
So, to boil it all down, this level is all about the nuts and bolts. It's the physical act of making sounds, and it's the brain's internal system for organizing them into a language that makes sense. It's the absolute ground floor.
All right, moving up a level in our toolkit. Next, we have morphology and syntax. Morphology is the study of how words are built, with prefixes, suffixes, things like that. Like how adding ed makes a verb past tense. Syntax is the grammar part, the rules we use to put all those words together into a proper sentence.
Yep, so we've gone from individual sounds to the actual blueprint of language. This level is all about the architecture, how we build our words from smaller pieces and then assemble those words into sentences that actually mean something.
Okay, so we've got the structure down. But what about the meaning? That's where semantics comes in. This is the part of the toolkit for investigating problems with vocabulary, like when you're struggling to find just the right word. It also deals with understanding how concepts relate to each other, like knowing a beagle is a type of dog, which is a type of animal.
Exactly. So if those last tools were about the how of language, semantics is all about the what. The key takeaway here is simple. This is the study of meaning itself. And last, but definitely not least, we've got pragmatics. I like to think of this as the secret unwritten rulebook for conversation. It's not about the words you say, but how you say them. Stuff like taking turns when you talk, staying on topic, and understanding that when your friend says, "I'm fine," they might not actually be fine. It's all those social skills. To put it simply, pragmatics is about mastering the social dance of conversation. And just like that, from the smallest sound to the most complex social rule, our toolkit is now complete.
So we've got our toolkit all laid out. Now for the really interesting part, let's see how we can actually use these tools to understand some specific disorders that you're probably going to read about in your textbooks.
Okay, this chart is super helpful. Let's break it down. First up, aphasia, which can happen after a stroke. This one hits our syntax and semantics tools hard. A person might say, "walk dog," instead of "I will walk the dog." Next is SLI, or specific language impairment. This is a developmental thing, and it mostly messes with grammar. So, syntax and morphology. Then you've got dysarthria. This is different. It's a motor speech issue, affecting the phonetic level. It's not about the language rules. It's about the muscles not working right. Notice how autism spectrum disorder primarily affects the pragmatic level, the social rules we just talked about. And finally, dyslexia. At its core is a problem with phonological processing, that very first tool in our kit.
All right, I need you to lean in for this next part because this is a big one. It's a concept that shows up on exams all the time, and it is absolutely key to understanding this entire field, the difference between knowing language and using language.
This brings us to this crucial idea, competence versus performance. So on one side, you have competence. Think of this as your brain's perfect internal dictionary and grammar guide. It's your abstract, flawless knowledge of the language. On the other side, you have performance, and that's what actually comes out of your mouth. For example, your competence knows the grammar rules perfectly, but your performance might trip over a word if you're really tired. Many clinical disorders create this heartbreaking gap between what a person knows inside and what they can actually say out loud. Okay, we are in the home stretch now. And to help you nail that exam, think of this next part as your personal cheat sheet, a quick glossary of some must-know terms. First up, MLU, which stands for mean length of utterance. It's basically a cool way linguists measure how a child's grammar is developing. Lexical Retrieval, that's just the fancy term for word finding. Prosody is the music of speech, the rhythm, the pitch, the melody. It can sound flat or unusual in some disorders. And finally, error analysis is the detective work, systematically studying mistakes to find the underlying pattern of a disorder. Seriously, this is a great slide to pause and really let sink in. So, after all of that, let's take a step back and look at the big picture. We've gone from tiny sounds to big concepts, from grammar rules to clinical conditions. Why does this all matter, especially for someone who's just studying English? This quote really says it all, doesn't it? Clinical linguistics takes those abstract grammar rules you memorized for class, and it shows you their real biological human side. It proves that language isn't just for writing essays. It's a fundamental part of who we are, and understanding it can directly, tangibly improve people's lives. So, I'm going to leave you with a final question to chew on as you study. After everything we've talked about, think about this. How does really understanding the distinction between speech, the physical act, and language, that whole amazing system of rules and meaning, how does that change your perspective on communication itself? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.